There she is. Yay.
Anyways, this is good, Simon, because it means people always arrive late to these things. So it means that we're gathering more viewers. Sorry.
Yeah.
What
And we
can
want a bit of like live, raw fuck ups or something, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is it. It's all about failing and failing proudly. Okay.
Very true, huh? That's very, very true. In fact, I mean, I know you're doing the intro and stuff, but that's a key element that clowning teaches us. You know, like when before in those early days, like those first 4 or 5 years when I was working with my first clown partner, we would die on stage, really, and we wouldn't care. And that's why it was funny. We just didn't accept the failure. Now, of course, like with the way we work today, with the work that's been developed from the work with Lecoq, is that we accept the failure as part of like the state of the clown that you are in. And the big lie is that no one's a failure in life. Everybody, you know, our ego is sort of, it's sort of kind of like constructed in such a way that like you're always okay. So how are you today? How are you? Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, da, 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 da. But like, that's why I said earlier about why I like to be real. It's like, how are you today? Well, sorry, small talk today. I can't do it because, you know, like my stepfather just died and I was with him. And that's a deep experience, not superficial at all. So I'm not going to be superficial about that. I'm not going to say I'm fine when I'm feeling like shit. I mean, my personality is quite, you know, happy, cheerful. But of course, you know, some people have asked me that before in my life. They say, "Are you never sad?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I'm sad." But you know, the big things in life that I've learned, they're choices. And I learned this from other sources, but also from dramatic art. You know, it's how the character chooses to react to the situation, to the crisis that they're in, that reveals their true character. You know, and I'd like to say that about worth mentioning this from a life-inspired thing, you know. My stepfather, his personality sometimes was disagreeable for some people. But if you knew him and you could see past that, he was being tough, but it was normally tough love. You know, and his personality, which is a little bit like, is that an antagonist force, whatever's going on? His true character was so loving and caring and warm-hearted and kind, you know, that when those actions and when that true part of him was apparent, it was deeply meaningful. And our personalities are like, as you know, they're fickle. We have you know, like with acting and stuff. You know, you don't need to act the whole personality. You just need like 3 things to construct your dramatic playing on to the qualities you want to be playing with and knowing the situation you're in. Because, you know, it's like, it'd be too much to just to present a whole psychologically perfect character there. And it'd be just also be a bit boring. And it's not the true character. What's interesting, as always, is when how does someone react when they're in crisis? And then that's the opportunity for our true character to come through on a page or on a stage or a screen, but also in life.
And what a challenge it is to find yourself in the space of play, in the space where you feel free enough to take those risks, despite the self-judgment, the shitty committee in the head, you know, as you eloquently say, you know, the self-critique, like, yeah, how do you reach that space in yourself, whether it's for an audition or when you're at a play about to perform, or even experimenting because you want to learn and explore your own capacities. How do you do that? How do you do play and freely without the fear of self-judgment or judgment of others, or the paralysis of failure? Like,
Well,
how do you confront failure, in other words?
How do you confront failure? Did you say?
How do you confront failure, and how do you play? Yeah, how do you play knowing all those things that we have, kind of all that pressure against us?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's true that you know, I for me personally, I chose at a very young age that I wanted to do what I'm doing now and help others to do a similar thing. But life is so full of failures that actually after a while, if you're not careful, you internalize like that's, you know, those voices of the shitty committee. They're not your voice. They're not your thinking. And unfortunately, we have part of our minds that are formed by, you know, influences or even influencers, or, you know, even that guy, Andrew Haight, I think he's called, that Andrew Tate wanker, excuse me. But he's influencing men to do weird stuff. And people then see that, they think it's okay. So, and, you know, so even on a simpler level than that, like something maybe we're a bit more, it's unconscious, but we're familiar with it, which is our parents, our environment, our teachers, our peers, you know, they, after a while, their thoughts and their negative thoughts, they can start to manifest like a worm, you know, a woodworm, just eating away your confidence, the real you, that real child, that real pure being that, like, you know, I'm very lucky because I got my granddaughter around, and, you know, human being in the essence at the very beginning in that pure state is incredible. The potential is amazing. And, you know, we have to achieve as much of that potential as possible. But we get this like woodworm of other people's shit that starts to like enter our own head, and then will come out of our own mouths. Like, you know, it's hard enough to be a victim of that shit that's in your own head, the shitty committee or the critic, that demented parrot that can sit on your shoulder and say that, you know, you're not good enough. It's like, well, what is good enough? I mean, it's like, well, you're not it. It's like,
So, yeah.
You know.
So how do you get to that place? How do you get to that place where you can silence those voices and just play? Like, a thing that I love about Actor Space and about the courses that I've taken there is, before any scene where we've rehearsed and we're about to perform it, and there's a bit of more of a tension in the air because, you know, we want to do it well. We're always told those three words, three very simple words, which is just one word repeated three times: enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. No, and there's and of course play and enjoy, and but yeah, my question is, and something that I often wonder, and sometimes I'm better at it, sometimes I'm not, which is, how do you get to that place of play when you have voices with you?
Well, first of all, my perspective is you do that. You seem to do it with a wonderful facility. You seem to do it with ease. Maybe there's other things that I don't know about, of course, that we've all got our stuff to deal with, but you seem to do that very, very well. In fact, you know, like my granddaughter, Amel, and like all children, that is what we are. That is the real us. The other stuff isn't. But funnily enough, the more of that stuff that you have, if you are interested in comedy and playing with other human beings, playing with their sensibilities, sensitivities, etc., without hurting them, you can turn that negative shit into something really liberating, and people can identify with. People can identify with it. They have solidarity with you. Why do people laugh at the clown? You know, it's like Lecoq used to say, well, people feel superior and they laugh, you know, because there's, from the audience's perspective, they feel like a parent, and they see like this like childlike being who doesn't seem to know. But also that's them. That's the audience who feels superior in that moment. Really, we identify with that childlike state.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, you know, it's an ongoing thing. It's not just like something you do as a trick and then that's it, and then you solve it. I feel personally, you have to acknowledge that whether they're demons or whether they're just like negative thoughts, or it's subtle sometimes. The critic can be like, for an artist, can be like what this thing becomes perfectionism, and that can kill all of the art. You have to kind of be easy with yourself. You have to kind of like realize that you're not one thing. You know, there's this one thing, our core, which is this childlike, pure being. And then there's all these influences, and of course then we have our reactions to pain, and then we have our reactions to other people's pain. I mean, it's very complicated and very complex. But for an actor or a player, it's very, very simple. It's like you focus on what's important, and, you know, the first rule really to be able to play would be to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard it said, that's why we say the 3 rules are enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. But I heard it said today, funny enough, from something that Marianne's doing with a team training about enjoying. And they were saying that there's a responsibility that you have to enjoy. And it's like not an obligation, okay? But it's true that if you're about to perform something for an audience and you are like so tied up with this negative stuff or whatever stuff it is, whether it's negative stuff or a physical problem, like you, whatever it is, and then you lose the connection with that joy and enjoying, you're shortchanging the audience because they've come to have a good time. And like you, why the hell are you doing it? If you're not doing it for yourself as well as there's a common good for sharing it with others as well, you're kind of like you're not taking responsibility, you know. And there's no way you can perform well when you're not really enjoying it. When something feels good, you want to do more of it. When you want to do more of it, it kind of like gives you a bit more of a grasp on things, gives you a bit more easier to handle, you know, allows you to explore more and to be freer. Yeah, so I just got distracted by saying every child is an artist. The question of how to stay an artist when we grow up, somebody just wrote there. I can't say who that is.
Edward J. Bentley, that's Joe. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And let's look at it as well from the other side. What the fuck is wrong with people? It's like, I'm not insulting the audience. I'm not. But look at us, you know. Supposed like human beings, civilizations, you know, whether it was the Romans or the British or the American or the Spanish, these empires. It's like, is that civilization? I mean, like, you know, we're so screwed up, human beings, you know, and think about it now. Slavery, that was never right. It was never right. So it's not just like, oh yeah, when it got outlawed and then we understood this, it was never right. So it's to do with the dynamic, to do with dominating another person, right? Especially this male thing. You can see it with my dog. He's like, you know, the dogs, they meet up, they have to find out who's the top dog. And there'll be some growling or some sniffing or and it's like, surely, okay, we see that in animals, but what about human beings? We still want to sniff each other's asses and try and do each other over to be the top dog. I mean, the answer is, yeah, that's exactly what Trump, I mean, could you believe it? You know, we just had this president. It's like, you know, I won't call him a clown because that's disrespectful to clowns. But like, and he's not the only one. You know, there are the leaders of ignorance, you know, and people very vulnerable. You know, there's an aspect of being childlike as well, which is we're naive, easily to be manipulated and easily to be hoodwinked. You know, like in Britain, we had this guy called Boris Johnson. He's a charlatan. He's useless. A cokehead. It's sort of kind of famously, a jolly, somebody on the jolly, drinking and cocaine and useless at his job. But you can't fire a politician. So by just, cheek and manipulation and trying to get his agenda through, wonderful results. You know, he's managed to manipulate people's minds. This is, you know, so that's why me personally, I prefer the power of the clown and the power of seeing a piece of poetry shared amongst an audience, than to kind of like be fighting or clashing and conflicting with so-called authorities.
I asked you before I got kicked out of Instagram because of my connection, is I wanted to ask you, of all the different arts and all the different fields that you could have chosen to get involved in, why theater? What is it about theater that drew you in?
Well, I was very lucky. So very simply, I grew up just with my mother. So as a single parent and a single child. And my friends were very important to me. So in that adolescent period, me and some of my friends were very, very wild. It was the time of punk and that's how I felt. That's how we all felt. We weren't like a racist or this like strange punks. We were just like some people having fun and just had a similar look. And these guys, they had both of their parents, well, both of their fathers, funny enough. One was Brendan Barker's a very good friend, and his father is Clive Barker, who wrote Theatre Games, a brilliant theatre practitioner. And then Danny, my dear friend Danny, his father, Ken Smith, was a poet. And because luckily enough, I was living in this university town, Exeter. Both of these guys, their parents had been teaching and doing things at Exeter and in the university there. And they were like these two lads. They said to me, you should come along to join in this thing called street theatre. You'd be great at it, they used to say. And I used to love always the stuff at school, even though I wasn't very big fan of anything at school. I used to love the drama and the English and the games and stuff like that. But in general, there was something wrong with the education system. And because I would not hold back, I'd tell people, because I felt like it was right, even though they had the power in the classroom, the teacher, I felt that, the power of reason and truth would win through. And they hated me for that. And it was fine, it wasn't serious. But I would win the argument, but get kicked out of the class. So what was going on for me was I was definitely going out of school, out of any education, because I wasn't really in it in a good way. But my friends, they got me to join in this theatre, street theatre it was at the time. And we used to put on weird costumes, young people doing this, run by my friend Dick. And, in the street, when people would see us in the UK, they would be like, just like, what's that? Somebody's going to mug me. And they'd hide behind their shopping bags, But then we were playing with these different sort of costumes and stuff. And the archetype of the clown, right? That endeared people towards that figure. So without having to create a space on the street, these characters who were just doing things in the street and in our work, and we go out and do some wild stuff, we would scare everybody, apart from the clown, where the majority of the audience would gather around. So then not me, but the guy who was running the street theatre, he started to get into this clowning thing. We started to call it more like clowning. And it was the time in the UK when there was this alternative comedy and then New Circus was going on back in like 79. Mm-hmm. People like Rick Mayall and Ade Edmondson, Alexi Sale, Peter Richardson, real breakthroughs away from the misogynistic and bigoted humor of, laughing at, women, the mother-in-law, the wife joke. It's like the old comedy was dying out and this new stuff was coming through. I just didn't know at the time that that's what we were involved in as well. So that's what theatre. I hardly ever went to theatre and knew much about it, but by participating and having fun, and then performing at certain concerts and festivals and stuff, and I love that challenge. I was feeling like being squashed as a child at school, but I could go out into the evening, weekends and stuff, and then drive an audience nuts with some stupid little sort of surreal clown performance, as part of the Bert Hollock's Elastic Mono Circus, and I was Pongo, who was the sidekick to Bertie the Clown, who, he was a case, So that's what drew me in. Just basically, I suppose it's in my character. It's in my character to be like. So that's my angle is much more the comedy side with theatre, even though I love all theatre, all good theatre.
And in many of your classes, there a recurring theme that goes through. One of the recurring themes is an actor does not act. Always something that you've been known to say a lot, and and why is that really important? Like, it sounds like a contradiction, but obviously it's not. But
well, we clearly define play. So like acting, action, do pick up the pen and put it down. That's an action. You know, it doesn't require much psychological analysis or whatever. Why pick up the pen? You know, what is it about the pen you want? Whatever. You know, neither do I have to pretend. You know, or in any way, shape, or form. Just it got really clear at Lecoq School that, and people say that there's no self-consciousness around the acting there, because you don't act, you do. You do something. What are you doing? You know, and if an overall objective is to make the audience laugh, then naturally that's the whole style of clowning. It's like, okay, it's about make the audience laugh. So that's what you do, and you know, you're surviving by the seat of your pants. You're gonna make them laugh because that's what the contract would be. That's what is wanted, and what you want to do, what they want to do. And if they don't laugh, what do you do then? You know, and then that's where this thing about enjoyment comes in, to keep you connected with yourself, because you don't die. Your ego will do a somersault. Your ego will do a backward roll, forward roll, cartwheel, but it's just your ego. So the ego will die on the stage. And when that artifice is removed, that social mask is kind of gone for that moment, then something really beautiful comes in, a deeper truth between yourself and the audience. And then there's this dialogue where this identification occurs. I don't know if I'm answering your question so well, but
well, no,
don't act. There's no need to act. It's like for example, Lecoq would explain that playing, or le jeu, is when you have you shape or your performance in relation to rhythm and the audience's expectation and whatever the objective is in the scene. So there's no need to act. And this is what we see when, I mean, there's a lot of it in different cultures that I've been involved in around the world. You see that in some TVs, for example, you see people acting soap opera acting. You see, and there's a whole culture. You see people in a comedy and they're doing comedy acting. Honestly, that's all BS. It's all these little cliques, these little things, these little habits that people fall into, you know, because if you're in TV, it's more like a sausage factory. You've got to come up with the goods. So people will click in. They won't do an original thing. They will do what the others are doing. They will get you know, they will try and fit in to that kind of like false style. What was beautiful with Lecoq was that, you know, like I was coming from this comic background. I wanted to do the Lecoq School for the clowning, but I had to do the whole first year to get to the second year where the clowning was. On the way to that journey to the second year, this whole year's training in the beginning from him was a genius. It was a work of genius. And I got sucked into whole of dramatic creation. And then I realized, of course, that the clown is just one slice of cake. If it was a cake we're talking about, it's one slice of a style. You got clowning here, got like drama, melodrama over here, tragedy here, buffoons over here, commedia dell'arte, you know, all these different potential styles, you know, tragedy itself, Greek tragedy, stuff that would be called Greek tragedy. But you see, we never ever had a model to conform to. Lecoq, in the second year, he would let us discover the style as though it never existed. He would just give you the context, the zone to explore. And from your efforts, that style is discovered. So you're literally discovering the dynamics of the stuff that is the Greek tragedy, which is in itself, I mean, that's like to work with the text in the way that is needed. You need the training nearly of an athlete. Dancers are good for tragedy because they have that implication about being in the studio 6 to 8 hours a day. You know, which is what, and a chorus, for example, it's very identifiable and easy to do for dancers to relate to. Yeah, and so there's an authentic theatre that Lecoq said it himself. He said to Marianne's year, actually not ours, he said that the theatre I've trained you for doesn't exist yet. Go out and create it. And it's really true. If you just take clowning and you just take, you know, another aspect of style and you just sort of like doing a bit of fusion with them, it's not enough. You can't just work in one style. You can't just work in a bit of fusion with another style. A real creative act is you've really explored the subject, the theme, and the essence of the work is revealed. You can't even put it into words. But and the funny thing is, you can be actioning it. You can be affected by it. You can be, conflicting with it. It's like, like with the Greek tragedy thing. Well, it's not so much Greek, but the tragedy thing. It's between oneself, the human being, the one, an individual, and supposedly the universe or the gods or God, your destiny. And it's just like different. That's different than people who say, well, what's the difference between a tragedy and melodrama? Because melodrama is, if you look at it in a more traditional sense, when the drama couldn't be played anymore, they would play music. That's why it was the mellow aspect. But melodrama is between human beings. It's between the tragedy and the stories, the dramas, that go on between human beings. So husband and wife, countries, heads of states, friends, different things like that. But whereas the conflict in tragedy is between man and destiny, or man and, like at the moment, it would be ourselves with ourselves, and with the theme of global warming. The rules are the rules, and we are messing with the gods, if you like, the gods all the time. And the tragedy is, bam, it's, so for something like that, you can't just improvise that. You can't just, a bunch of actors can't come together and just work with that. No, you need to work with poetry. You need to have heightened text, verse, Shakespeare, the Greek stuff, and then you need a different body to deal with that text. So in that sense, Natasha, you do have to act, but it's not acting. You have to project that text, or the image that's in the dialogue, in the verse, into the space, into the audience's minds. And and it's like, this is not such an easy thing to do. It's like, funny enough, Marianne did a show quite recently, which she was using poetry and the different poems that she'd made, and then she assembled them together into a show. And it was really interesting. It was
Great.
like,
Wonderful.
Yeah, you saw it. Yes.
Beautiful.
And it's heightened language. It's not easy at all to do if it's your own writing. But she had this comic twist on it that kind of permitted it to be like accessible to an audience. I mean, theatre in itself is so vast that oh my God, I'm going to be attacked by the dog. He's coming.
Yeah.
Talking about vast things. There's this vast dog coming here, about to chew my toe.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but so for me, it's so vast. And with working in the school, the Lecoq school, you've got people from all over the world. Japanese people, South American people, European people, North American people, African people. And, in those, in our cultures, you have storytelling. And you've got this wisdom that is held in the stories that are told to the children. And, it's the same thing being said again and again and again. And that's what, it was so incredible to be in a school with all these different cultures and these supposedly different traditions, but actually with the same content. Everyone's talking about the same thing, confronted by the insanity of some of our human behavior, like, wow, what's going on? Confronted by, what the hell's going on with life and then death? What's going on with God? So the big mysteries, that's the terrain to be dealt with by theatre. And to be honest, it's not being dealt with. There's very little good work around. It's a shame. But it's from my experience, it's there's some good theatre which is really worth experiencing and sharing, and a lot of it is it's like state subsidized stuff, or stuff that people think will be popular, and I have a hard time going to the theatre sometimes to have a good time.
Yeah, I remember in one of your classes, and I took a note of this, that you said, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but that Lecoq had said that acting is more of an impressionistic thing. No, it's not a literal art. It's more impressionistic, and the idea is to get the right triggers so that you allow enough space for the audience to experience the rest. You're not spoon feeding the audience the experience or the emotion or the story, even the storyline. No, you're allowing them, you're creating the triggers for them to have their own personal experience of that emotion, that scene, of that performance. And maybe that's what I also agree with you, that I find lacking today's kind of, let's say, more mainstream arts, no, in cinema and in TV series and
yeah. I mean, to pick you up on that, like, this is one of the things about what we say about, you know, the actor's space. We say, you know, to the participants, where is the real actor's space? Is it the stage? Is it the screen? Or is it the inner world of the audience?
Mm.
You know, and it's true, right? When we're working with people with training, and somebody will come into the space to do an exercise, and they come into the space and their presence is particular to them, but also they are a presence in the space. But it's true that either the audience, the story will start with that person. As they come in, there's a story that starts around them. Things happen to that person. And this is like, you're just wondering who they are, what's going on, where have they come from, what are they going to do? And other people, they act. You know, and they're just not there. They're acting that they're there. They're playing. You know, so what's interesting for me, actually, is the people who don't necessarily want to be actors. They're often very good people to work with in theatre. Yeah, so this is the thing, is like the actor's space is the inner world of the audience. And Lecoq was, yes, very much an impressionistic artist and a teacher in that way. And even today, I would say that, you know, we try to refine that to this suggestivism, to suggest things rather than to, you know, so yes, it's part of the impression, you know. So, and it's intimidating sometimes because you're about to go and do some work. You think, well, the production values, you know, we don't have this, we don't have that, we don't have blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, you don't have to do that. It's like, I used to watch Peter Brook's work in Paris. You'll be nothing in the space. There'd just be literally a brick wall, you know, an actor, another actor, and they're just having, you know, a good time together. And poetry is being spun, you know, and you're pulled into this, you know, this weave that the director and the actors are doing with you, and the writer. And you have to be an active part in that, you know, that interaction. Often, I think actors are really looking at themselves too much. You know, it's like, well, no, don't worry about yourself. You know, like, you know, not in a positive sense or a negative sense. It's like, what is it that the character is doing? What's going on? And just experience that. Have fun with that, and then, you know, your ability as a performer will allow the audience in, depending on your sort of your own personal ability and talent as a story sharer. I suppose that's what it is, right? We're sharing in being alive, and we're reflecting on things in life. And sometimes these things are too much when we go through them. We can't grasp it. And then in a piece of work, sometimes when you're working on it, you could be very careful that you're not just getting into something for dramatic effect. When you're working with difficult material and sensitive material, people call it now being people who get triggered. You have to really think, right, okay, so is this too graphic? You know, is this, or what is the, you know, so if it's about domestic violence, I seem to have done a lot of work around domestic violence, which is one of the mysteries of life as to why that happens. It's like, well, if 1 in 3 people women in their lifetime in the world experiences a form of domestic violence, then in the theatre there's going to be a huge percentage of that audience who are not going to think that the others have experienced it as well. They're not going to be identifying with each other. They're going to be like, if you don't treat it really well, you can be, for dramatic effect, taking advantage of their trauma. So this is the difference between sensationalism and the poetic depths, as Lecoq would call it. that person in the audience could feel like somebody understands. You know, these people have done their work. These artists have done their research. They know what they're talking about, and they're not improvising in this area. This is, and they've got the right advice. They've got the right thing. And then before sharing it with an audience, you know, you must have checked those things out. And those are not things to just try and blag and get away with you know, just in the heat of the moment, trying to get the show up and running. And that's very, very important, is that not to take advantage of people's misfortune, is to shine a light on what the hell is misfortune, so that you discover for yourself in our working process.
Like the difference between truth and sensationalism, no?
Yeah.
And Simon, I wanted to ask you, because I was looking at your website before, and I saw that you have this new course, which I've never taken, because I've taken all the courses in the actor space, but there's this course which is called Passionate Nature, which I think you're giving because it's the 25th anniversary of the actor space. It's a special course giving out this year. And
the first one we ever did was actually Passionate Nature, and it was inspired by our work with Lecoq, and it's about, you know, it's passionate nature, and it's about the nature of passion. You know, like if you look at nature and see, you know, like, you know, how a dog with his desire to defend himself against the cat, you know, that's like, you know, that's interesting conflict, and it's just there. It's in nature. Now, that inner conflict somebody can be going through. It'd be a good example about domestic violence, or a parent with a child, or to treat a theme of violence is, rather than try and work out a stage fight, is to look at the dynamics of cat and dog. Who's attacking? Who's threatening? You know, who's standing their ground? Who's scared? And why are they attacking? Is it because they're scared? And who's the most vicious one? So, by looking at nature, we see life cycles, patterns of life that cycle around us, that some of them are mysterious to us and unknown. Now, these things, they literally will speak to you like a dream will speak to you, just by reflecting on it. So just by playing with it in that way that nature does, we can get a deeper purchase, a deeper understanding of a difficult situation. Like, for example, for me, it's getting clearer about the dynamics of domestic violence, is that men, you know, often a male person, because of it, they have a big body, they are muscular, you know, it's abuse doesn't come from that. It's like they have a power in their body, and they are abusive with that. A woman who tends to be, will have a tendency possibly to have a smaller body, and to be being the victim of somebody else trying to control them. So when their misunderstandings and difficulties, you know, normal misunderstandings and normal difficulties between a couple start to, you know, grow into another level of toxicity, you know, it's like what's kicking in is like something that could be a strength, like someone's strength. If they're hitting somebody, their partner they love, obviously that's abusive. So it's not in itself like men aren't bad, obviously, but there's some toxic behavior that men often are the ones who engage in, that bring around tragic results in their relationship. So, for example, in this course, the Passionate Nature work, rather than looking at just directly the theme, okay, straight away as a subject and bringing it in, let's just work with domestic violence. What we would do is we would start with fire, for example, and we'd have maybe a domestic situation, and then there'd be like a candle that's been left burning on the table, and near some dry flowers, and then there'll be a chair over here, TV and curtains over here, and there could be like, you know, this little candle that slowly gets out of control and starts to burn the flowers. The flowers set fire to the curtains sets fire to the room, the furniture starts to blaze, and that could be fire doing something which may be more familiar to dancers, where you're literally moving as fire. You are the fire in that domestic situation. And then after that work, then you say, okay, that's interesting what we just did, blah, 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 blah. Now transpose that to the human. So if you relate, because they relate, the loss, the violence, the fire is an incredible thing for us to reflect on about what violence is. Violence will lock onto something like a flame will be locked onto. There'll be some fuel there, and it will burn until it burns out, until it's extinguished. And it's the way it's connected. It's rooted to it, and it flames. So without me getting my own personal emotions involved, as me, Simon, I can explore the character in flaming, raging, what would you call that? Beyond anger, rage, so that you get to the peak of it, because the flame and the firework allows you to explore the heights, the heightened state, but from a perspective of distance, not cold, but you're able to be like the airplane is flying, but you're the pilot. You're nice and cool within. You're witnessing the work, and that's very interesting because in the UK, when I was doing some work with drama, some drama teachers, they're saying, you've got to be angry. You have a problem with anger, and I'm like, well, I might express my anger or feel my anger in my way. If somebody's revolting to me, I may feel sad rather than feel angry. As a young person, that's what it was like. But so they were trying to make me, as in a traditional, more drama school, UK drama school way, they went, you have to be angry. And I'm like, okay, maybe this acting thing is not for me. But when I got to Lecoq, and Lecoq just said, just burn down the house, just destroy, as fire, just flame, just, explore that combustion. Well, as soon as I did that, and that wasn't me, none of my stuff was mixed up in it, and I found this like, wow, this freedom to play in heightened states on the tragic level or comic level.
By using the breathing and by using physicality,
Yes, with no neurosis or me mixed in there. My stuff is private.
Or using your personal story, right?
Yeah. It's the character or the stuff going on for the character, not the indulgence of the actor thinking about a sad thing that happened to me. To be honest, listen, this is very interesting. Often people want to know, how can I be more emotional? Like we call this workshop as one of the passionate nature. People are interested in passions, interested in emotions. If you've got state here, mood, then emotion in the middle, and then passion at the top, there's just, there's a scale. People are like, well, how can I do that? It's very, very hard for me to laugh on stage, or I can't cry. How can I cry? Or be angry. Somebody said to me that I'm not very angry. To me, it's like, well, to be honest, it's not to do with your emotions. What we want is a thing which this is a term that I've coined, called.
Sorry, I coughed right at the
It's called. No, we call it, or I call it, key motion. A key goes in the lock and opens the door to the audience's experience of the work. That's where catharsis happens. And what the team has to do, the director, the writer, writing, the team, the players, including then when they share it with the audience, is that we need to create a device, that allows the audience to have that journey, to go with that story, to identify with that person, to empathize in a deep, deep way safely. So it's an aesthetic emotion. It's not really going to trigger you or whatever. You can go into it or out of it as you feel comfortable. And that for me is that thing is, it's interesting. Key emotion. So emotion is what we all share in.
Right.
Lecoq was very into motion, the school of movement. But I tell you, to be honest, from here to here, what the hell is that? Is it the movement? Do you want to improve the quality of the movement? Is actually like from here to here is literally there's an evolution in time and space, that life is happening between here and here. Change is everywhere. Change is going on all the time. So it's not like you want to improve the quality of your movement. You've got to understand what the hell movement is, which is like, it's like how movement and time are related. Everyone's sort of, it's another day, it's another day, this time goes by, blah, 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 blah. No, we're just moving. And in fact, you know, so much of this thing is orbiting. We're going around. You'll find that with impros. In an impro that's going on, if it goes on a little bit too long, don't worry about it, because you're going to come back to the same place, and there will be the door out into another level, spiraling up or spiraling, diminishing or crescendo. But this is very important, is to get the audience to have the maximum experience, not the actors. The actors have to be economical. We need to preserve and conserve our energy, because our bodies will wear out, you know, and the way some people are, you know, the way some people are trained. I mean, Will Smith has gone too far with things, you know. It's that meltdown he had at the Oscars last year. He's mixing up the work he was doing with as the father of Venus and Serena Williams, you know, and the guy snaps into a moment where he's slapping his friend, this guy, for offending his wife. I mean, that's not somebody with emotional health. That's somebody with emotional health problems. And some acting techniques, they will take you to emotional problems. The beautiful thing with Lecoq's work, it's all natural. Go on, you broke up a little bit. Go on, sit again.
Yeah, no, I was saying that also the danger of relying on one's own emotions is that it's not reliable. It can work in one scene, or it can work once, or it can work maybe 3 times, but then if you need to go back and do that scene again, you don't have those tools that are going to take you there. You're relying on that emotion and your own story to do that. And maybe you're going to be in a different stage in your life where that emotion won't do that for you anymore. And so you don't have the tools to get there.
Yeah. And also, yeah.
And you and Marianne's work is that it's very clean in that sense. It's really about learning those tools to get you there. And those tools get you there every time. You know, and it's not.
Yeah, and I'll say this as well. Sometimes in a scene, say a written scene, people will say, you know, it's like, so this is, you know, it's a sad scene. So then people on the first reading, people are like, okay, yeah, so, you know, I'd like to be able to cry and that, you know, like, so maybe I'll find some sadness in that. Okay, which is fine. But actually, if it's really, really sad, if it's really, really heavy, like, you know, a battlefield and a mother searching for her lost conscript son, you know, lost maybe in battle, she finds him, you know, and then, you know, what's she going to do? Start crying when she finds her recently deceased son, you know? Or does she sing him a lullaby and caress his hair? Just as he was when he was 3 years old, and the audience will shit themselves because she excuse me, but we don't feel the sadness of that sad as well. And what we feel is that we will feel scared for her sanity. Will she now survive his death? Is her life over too? Because it's so intense that you know, it's taken us to another place. Now, that's the problem with trying to, it's like result directing, result acting. I want to be sad, so how do I learn to be sad? You don't want to learn to be sad. What we need to find is the dynamics of sadness that exist not just in oneself, but in the space and in nature and in the audience. It's a circuit. This complicity, electricity, it's like not just me or somebody else doing a grand, wonderful performance on the stage. What it is to engage with the story of the audience. It's our story, you know, and we want to understand what the hell's going on. What is this life? You know, because one day, like I just had a very recent experience of that, one day, that is it. And we are all going to pass away. And it's like, you know, oh, it's the theme of death. No, don't worry about the death thing. That's going to happen. It's like, you know, I'm not scared of dying. I said that the other day. It's not scared of dying. Scared of pain, yeah, that's something to deal with. But I'm scared of not living. Not scared of it, but, you know, I want to live. I want to live and enjoy my life until I can't anymore, until that's the end. And to be in the company of others who want to do the same. Like this is wonderful ritual or whatever you call it, or game or whatever, that is this theatre thing or this dramatic art thing that has manifested really strongly with the actor space. and is now a really wonderful, healthy, supportive community that is generating so much, so quality actors, but also the quality of the work that's coming out. And this is a very, very exciting time. You know, we've finished this pandemic. This pandemic is like, you know, it's finished, but it's kind of gone to another level. And it's a rebirth. If people grab the bull by the horns now and engage with, you know, do the stuff that you can do, and you know, because we are living in a state, half the time I get the feeling that people are like this, you know, only half living, if that. And I'm not excluding myself, right, from that. I'm not just judging others. Remember that thing about the finger pointing at others? You know, there's three fingers pointing right back at you. You know, I'm not excluding myself from that, but that unconsciousness, you know, it's like, that's part of existence. But I want to experience as much as possible the good stuff in life. I want to laugh my socks off, or I want to cry my eyes out, you know. I want to be angry with those idiots who are fucking up our planet. And then I want to call to action, actually. You know, I actually, at this day and age, with this theatre that Lecoq said, this doesn't exist yet, go out and create it. This form of theatre doesn't exist yet, go out and create it. Well, you know, this is what we're doing here at the moment. We've got plans here to do this thing called wild theatre. So it's not necessarily in a theatre building. It's obvious, like I started off in the street, but literally the woods. Woods is great. Why? Because we get to identify and be in the company of nature. That's why that workshop, Passionate Nature, to be surrounded by nature, to be steeped in nature, and then to let it affect our bodies, get us healthier, and then have a beautiful, healthy expression. And razzle the bars. You know, like me being a comic, me coming from a comic background, I only worked this out in the last 10 years, really, that it's my job is really to criticize, not without being the critic or creating a new shitty committee, but it's like, it's really normal for me to attack the authorities. Without being violent or anything like that, but, you know, with a passion and with a compassion for that, is to confront them with the truth. Not that maybe we're going to change anything, but it's healthy expression. And actually, little changes do happen.
And the more you see the truth, around you, the more inspiring, the more encouraged you are, the more less afraid, I will say, because fear is such a huge thing for all of us. The less afraid we are to speak truth. And that's where, and it's going to sound really cheesy, but I mean, that's where light goes through. I mean, that's where things flow. That's what we're so moved by when we're able to go, for example, to places like the Actors Space and create a scene or be in a moment where we are speaking truth. Like, how did I get here? And I actually now have the tools to tell the truth about myself, about this person in front of me, about this scene. And people around you, even if you're talking about something nobody's lived through, are moved. And there we've created community, you know, and and so important, these experiences, these spaces that allow these things to grow.
It's beautiful. That's really beautiful. It's like, for me, it's a little bit like when it really works well, it's like, so individually we have a dream, right? And we understand it or not understand it, but we have it. Well, in a great piece of theatre, a really good piece of theatre, when a live event, we collectively dream. We are all, you know, individually experiencing the work, you know, individually, but also we're tuning into the same bloody thing. So, you know, a human being there's the outside and the way which somebody is judged, or the way that you judge another from the outside. But then we all have this inner world. And, you know, to get to that inner place, you know, you need time. So you get to see this. So you come along and you watch a piece of something, a piece of funny something, entertainment or whatever. You expect it to be a theater show. But actually you can get into this beautiful, like a temple of feeling. You know, where feeling, you're able to feel and celebrate your fragility, the failures, the fuck ups, to clearly define and let us see what the toxic elements are. There's recipe for disaster in relationships. You know, where when somebody's strength becomes an abuse of their strength, to be like in domestic violence scenario, for example. And you know, but what hopefully happens is that then we become like liberated. Something is liberated. Something is in strength, is strengthened inside. So you don't necessarily have to go through the trauma that is being shared on the stage, but you get a bit of a wisdom from it. You get the you know, it's like something to help you in the future. If you have been through it, you're identifying with that person, and this is giving you the tools for the future. You know, and that's so one of the cool things about theatre. And it takes the same amount of effort to do a shit show as a brilliant show. You know, but you're just going to keep the focus.
To lie or tell the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got to really check in. What's being said here? If you're doing like the work that we're doing at the moment with the freaks, like with yourself and the others, it's like, I had to keep on checking in. Is what is happening here what I want us to be saying? I'm not articulating it. It's something else is being said by the kind of the collective wisdom that's in the group, the collective wisdom that's in our ability to dream individually, you know. And it's like, okay, is this bullshit now? Sometimes you have to give it a bit of a space to not, you know, because you think, oh, I like it, and then it's like you can like something and not see what it really is. It may not be as good or as what is important for the piece to work. So it's like this thing. Me and Marion used to say that. What do you want to say, right? As playwriters. Well, be careful about this thing about what is it you want to say, because I don't know what I want to say. I want to know what needs to be said about this, about that, because it will speak. It's funny as well. With Lecoq, it used to be like silence en jeu. You know, that would be like the motto of the school, he once said. You know, like the more you don't say it, the more it appears in force, in strength. And like then there's got this huge elephant in the room, that which is not being said.
Name it,
which is actually,
the more it appears. Yeah.
Yeah, and that theatre for me is like that. The poetry is like that. And it's a time of that. It's beautiful. It's, you know, people need it, right? After this 2 years of hardly seeing each other and doing this and doing that, we need to come together and, you know, we want to hear the story and see the storyteller. You know, we want to, you know, tap along to the music and see the musician, you know. We want to be there as part of it and go, my God, I'm alive. This is beautiful.
Yes, totally. And Simon, actually, the course is May 27th to the 4th of June. Like, are there still a space? I mean, no, that is the date. I researched it. Sorry, it sounded like a question. I'm just wondering, can people still sign up?
For sure, yeah. The Passionate Nature is, we took a risk this year and put it not just in the summer where the universities are off and the schools are off so teachers can come. We kind of like thought, well, let's spread things out a bit because it's getting very hot here in the summer. So in August, there's just one with the clown work. And the hottest part of the year, we're not working. And at the end of May and the beginning of June is the Passionate Nature. And that is it's like what we did. This is celebrating this year is our 25th season. So we're celebrating 25 years of doing the actors space. And the Passionate Nature is the original one that we were doing. And, you know,
it's nice, a full circle. Yeah.
And it is one that will make an impression on the bodies of the actors so that when they go away and whatever they're getting involved in, whatever mischief they're making, their circuits will in their bodies will remember this work because you physically have to embody it, you know. Even though we're training the senses of the actors and to work with the senses of the audience, everything is through the body, not the mind. I mean, this is something really, it's like, you do not have to be clever. You do not have to be talented. And some of the best actors I know, some of the most brilliant, prolific actors are as dumb as shit. I mean, let's face it. You know, that guy, what's the Portuguese guy? I mean, his IQ, what's his name? Francisco? His IQ, it's like,
poor guy.
Yeah, I mean, and that Condon guy, Martin Condon, for example, just to name a couple of, I don't want to mention yourself, because obviously you're very intelligent, and so you're the exception to the rule.
I'm the exception.
No, but it's true. It doesn't
Yeah.
come from that place of intellect. It comes from another place. It comes from, that's why we call this show the Freak Show. Is actually it's not about mental health. Everyone's going on about mental health. I mean, this is about emotional health, and that show is about those characters, their emotional well-being or lack of well-being, and that's a real roller coaster ride, you know, for of emotions, and and it hasn't come from any clever thinking. No ideas needed, just a possibility and play, and then something is said, and of course we don't know what that actually speaks to in the audience fully. It'll speak to the audience in its own way.
Simon, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. I think it just got, because it says 10% battery, so I'm trying to. But actually, because we're going over time, and I can't get enough of you, and there's just so much more we could talk about. I wish we had another hour, so we should do this again soon. But before I let you go, I just want to ask one final question, and this is one of these questions that okay, here goes. So you've been around for a while. you've done what you've been doing. You know, you've been I mean, from all your decades of experience as an actor, as a director, as a writer, as a creator, and as a teacher, is there like an insight, that like a condensed insight that you could share, like something that you wish that you would have known years ago, but like you're like, well, it took me this amount of years to kind of figure this out, and I wish I had that in my back pocket? It's really annoying questions, I know, because you can't just like condense your life in a sentence. But if there is a thing, a nugget that you can share.
Yeah, well, I would say, but this is what a great question. Well, for me, I would say there's nothing to fear. The fear has a place in life. I mean, like, you know, the car's coming towards you, you're in the middle of the road, he's like, get out of the road. That's a good thing. The fear is necessary for life to continue. But there's so much fear in the world, in ourselves. One of the most toxic things. I mean, I would probably say that in as a little jump in my brain or my intuition, that, you know, probably the majority of that shit that people do in domestic violence is somehow there's fear there, where about maybe being left alone, or that their partner likes somebody else more than them, and this sandwich of anger and whatever, fear or pain, leading to someone to get into hate. I mean, this is insane. I mean, it's really, really insane. That's why it often comes back to this thing for me with the, you know, the domestic violence work. So I'd say on a deep level, yeah, fear is an important tool to have in life, but there is nothing to fear in life, because everything in life is, I'm talking about the good stuff, pro-life, prolific. It's like when you're meeting like everybody in the actor space, it's like, it's so heartening that there are these amazing people who are also interested in doing stuff that I'm interested in. And I got told at school, but people don't think like you'd think. You know, and I got to say to those teachers who were like, stop being an idealist, Simon, you know, and shut up, and, you know, things aren't like that, is that actually they were wrong. That some people, but there's like I say in Catalan, you know, quatre gats, there's four cats that are nuts, that are really nuts. They just happen to be heads of government most of the time. But you know, people do think like I think when I'm thinking and functioning as a healthy, happy human being. And people do want the best for themselves and their family and each other and the planet, etc., etc. Anything else is madness. So, like, you know, like, get out there and do what it is that you want to do. As however wacky your projects are. I mean, don't exhaust yourself and don't get caught up with this weird ambition thing. So be careful of that. But follow your heart. Well, everything they said to me about no, you want to stay in the post office. I said, okay, yeah, nothing wrong with being a postman. Except I wasn't even a postman. I was just a telegram delivery boy, which was phased out when emails came in. So they gave me no future at all by telling me that I should go and get a regular job. Much more of a future in clown work and comedy work. And yeah, face it. Just have the courage, you know, just have the courage to just, you know, and let yourself be encouraged by others. You know, surround yourself with other people who, you know, who float your boat. You know,
Yeah.
that's one of the beautiful things about the active space, the workshops and the sessions that we do. But when we say we need to make a safe space, I'm not saying, you know, everybody needs to make a safe space. No. Everybody has to make that space safe. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. But when everybody does, everyone gets invested in it and wants to take a risk, you know, and learn something from the others and share something from within and, you know, and discover more, you know, beautiful stuff happens and
It's
layer upon layer.
amazing. And it's amazing no matter who comes to the actor space years and years and years. And I've been going there for years because of not only as a student, but also as an actor in the director's course. Every single student who comes in there contributes to creating a safe space where there's always a sense of teamwork and community. And it's amazing. And we talk about this all the time between us, the regulars who go back, like, how does this happen every time? And it's in big part because you and Marianne set those foundations, those values, and that sets the tone for the entire workshop. And
Well,
it is like a fearless place in a way, right?
because we're inspired. Yeah.
Space
Because,
creates.
yeah, you get inspired by the others. We offer this project for people to come and participate in. And it's true, you get a hell of a lot more than just what you're after. You know, the friendships and I mean, I've been through some things in the last 3 years. Not only did my stepfather die just a couple of weeks ago, also three years ago, my mother died. Now, at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, and the warmth and the strength that was shared from for example, with the associates of the actor space, who are like, I suppose, are like trustees or directors or whatever, was amazing. You know, it's like, you know, that's what I mean when I'm saying about this thing about, you know, there's nothing to fear. Um, you know, like obviously there's normal things. My big dog, you know, looking mad, or a dog on the street, you may think, oh my God, what's that? But actually, even with a dog, you shouldn't get into fear, because if you just walk away looking at it or not looking at it and keeping away, you know, it'll just, you know, it won't give you a hard time. But if you get into fear, it'll start thinking, what's going on? Oh, you know, it's like, and
Yeah.
out of nowhere, we do this so much. Out of nowhere, we make our own problems. Getting back again to being that childlike being that we really are, and you know, and sharing in that with others. You know, that's why I'm saying about the fear thing, because, you know, of course there's going to be things that are going to be intimidating, and ooh, well, that's where courage comes in, and let the others encourage you. They're just reminding you that you are a strong, loving, beautiful human being, and one day you won't be. One day we're going to be gone. You
Yeah.
know, and we know that before we do, let's have the best, healthiest, crazy party that we can have.
That's beautiful. Simon, on that note, I'm gonna because I'm afraid that my phone is gonna just die, and you're gonna say something profound, and I'm not gonna be there. So I'm gonna let's let's put this to be continued. And thanks so much for.
Oh, thank you, Tash.
I really always enjoy talking to you. So we need to do this again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a real privilege.
Privilege is mine.
Bye-bye, and bye to everybody else out there. Have a lovely evening.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
And hope to see you soon. We want to hear about your projects. What the hell are you doing? You know, share it with us.
Yeah, share with us your comments. Thanks, Annie.
Bye.
Ciao, everyone. Ciao, Martin. Bye, Mom. My mom's here.
Hi, Tasha's mom.
Caroline.
Bye.
Hello.
Ciao, Bella.
Ciao. So I think you need to...
what do I do? Drop the phone in a bottle of water. What do I do? Do I just push this button? No, they're still there. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Ciao, Simon. Ciao, ciao.